A struggling single mom took care of a sick old man, never expecting he's a DC millionaire. Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today's story is called A Struggling Single Mom Took Care of a Sick Old Man, Never Expecting He's a DC Millionaire. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character, Emma. Emma Walker had never thought much about fate or destiny. A hard-working single mother of two, she lived a life that many would consider difficult. Every day was a struggle, balancing two jobs to make ends meet and barely scraping by. Yet, despite the heavy load, she kept going because there was no other choice. Her kids, her family, everything depended on her. She was determined not to let them down. She had heard of the job opportunity before, but never really paid much attention to it. Caring for an elderly person, especially someone as frail and sick as Mr. Harland, was a lot of responsibility. But when the agency called again, desperate for someone to take the position, she agreed. It wasn't just about the money. It was about doing something good, something she could be proud of. When she arrived at Mr. Harland's large house in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., she couldn't help but feel a little out of place. The house was massive, far too grand for someone like her to even imagine stepping foot in. But she pushed the feeling aside. Her job was simple. Keep him comfortable, help with his medications, make sure he ate, and keep him company during the long hours of his illness. The first few days were rough. Mr. Harland barely spoke, his frail body silent under layers of blankets. But Emma remained patient. She gently talked to him, as if he could hear her, because she had always believed in the power of words. She didn't know much about him, just that he had been a wealthy man in his youth, someone with a reputation in the business world. She also didn't care. For Emma, it wasn't about the money, the status, or the background. She just wanted to help a person in need. She found herself thinking about Mr. Harland more and more, especially in the quiet moments when the weight of her responsibilities would overwhelm her. She'd speak to him as though he could answer, sharing her frustrations about work, her fears about the future, and the hopes she had for her children. She never expected a response, but one day, something strange happened. As she adjusted his pillow, his hand twitched. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it was there. She stopped, heart racing. Did she imagine it? She waited, holding her breath. But nothing. She sighed and went back to her work, convinced it was just a trick of her mind. But as days passed, she noticed more and more subtle movements. A finger twitched. His chest rose and fell a little deeper. One morning, when Emma was adjusting the blanket, she felt it, a faint squeeze of her hand. Her eyes widened. Could it be? Could Mr. Harland be waking up? She rushed to get the doctor, almost knocking over a chair in her haste. Dr. Anderson arrived quickly, his face serious as he examined Mr. Harland. After a few tense minutes, he finally spoke. "This is unexpected. He's responding. It's a good sign, Emma. A very good sign." Emma's heart leapt in her chest. Maybe there was hope for Mr. Harland after all. Maybe there was hope for her too. As the days passed, Mr. Harland's condition improved. Slowly, he regained consciousness, but still, Emma knew very little about him. He had always been kind, even in his silence, but there was something mysterious about him. He wasn't just any elderly man. Something about him felt different. Something about him seemed far more important than she could have imagined. She had no idea just how much her life was about to change. As the days passed, Emma continued her routine of caring for Mr. Harland. She was beginning to see small improvements, which brought her a sense of hope. He was still mostly silent, but his eyes seemed to follow her movements, and occasionally his fingers would twitch in response to her touch. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give Emma a glimmer of optimism. She had become so accustomed to caring for him that it felt like part of her daily life now. The house, although grand and intimidating at first, was slowly starting to feel less foreign. She had even begun to enjoy the peaceful silence of his large living room as she sat beside him, reading or simply watching the light filter through the big windows. One evening, after she had given him his medication and tucked him into bed, Emma sat on the couch in the corner of the room. The warmth of the fire crackling in the fireplace made the space feel more like a home, and for a brief moment, she allowed herself to relax. She pulled out her phone to check on her children, making sure they were all right. Her youngest, Lily, had a school project due, and Emma always worried about her kids, especially now that she was away from them so often. Just as she was about to call them, her thoughts were interrupted by a sound from across the room. She looked up and saw Mr. Harland's hand move slightly. Her heart skipped a beat. It wasn't just a twitch this time. It was more purposeful. She rushed over to him, leaning in close, her breath catching in her throat. "Mr. Harland?" she whispered softly, unsure if he could hear her. To her surprise, his eyes fluttered open, a faint glimmer of recognition in them. Emma gasped, her heart racing. "Mr. Harland, you're awake." She gently held his hand, her voice trembling with relief. His lips parted as if he was going to speak, but no sound came out. Still, his gaze was focused on her, and that was enough for Emma. She called the doctor immediately, her hands shaking as she dialed the number. Dr. Anderson arrived quickly, a look of disbelief on his face when he saw that Mr. Harland was indeed awake. "This is incredible," Dr. Anderson said, his voice full of amazement. "I didn't expect this kind of response so soon. He must be stronger than we thought." Emma stood back, watching in awe as Dr. Anderson examined Mr. Harland. She couldn't believe it. After all this time, it seemed like things were finally turning around. As the doctor continued his work, Emma stepped outside for a moment to gather her thoughts. She couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder at how quickly everything was changing. Just a few days ago, she had been unsure of whether Mr. Harland would even survive. Now, he was awake, and there was a glimmer of hope for the future. But as she stood outside in the cool night air, Emma felt a nagging sense of unease. There was something about Mr. Harland's presence that was starting to feel strange. It wasn't just the wealth that surrounded him. It was more than that. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but something about him seemed out of place, even in his own home. When she returned inside, she found Mr. Harland sitting up, propped up by pillows. His expression was calm, but his eyes were intense, almost as if he was studying her. Emma hesitated, feeling a little uncomfortable under his gaze. "How do you feel?" she asked softly, trying to break the silence. Mr. Harland didn't answer right away. He just stared at her for a moment, his eyes narrowing slightly. Emma shifted uncomfortably in her seat, unsure of what to make of the situation. Was he angry with her for taking care of him? She had no idea what was going through his mind. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Mr. Harland spoke. His voice was hoarse, but there was a clarity to it that made Emma pause. "I owe you more than you know," he said quietly. "I don't know how to repay you for everything you've done." Emma blinked in surprise. This was the first time he had spoken since he woke up, and the sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. "You don't owe me anything," she replied quickly. "I'm just doing my job. I'm happy to help." But Mr. Harland shook his head slowly. "No, you've done more than that," he said, his eyes softening. "I know you don't understand yet, but I will make sure you are taken care of." Emma felt a strange unease settle in her stomach. She wasn't sure what he meant by that, but she could tell he wasn't just talking about her salary or the job. There was something more, something deeper in his words. But before she could respond, Mr. Harland's voice grew softer, almost as if he was speaking to himself. "I'm not just any man, Emma," he said, his gaze never leaving hers. "I have a lot of things to make right. And you will be part of that." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know what he meant, but she could feel that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. Little did she know, Mr. Harland's words would turn out to be more than just a passing comment. They would change her life in ways she couldn't yet imagine. As the days passed, Emma found herself spending more time with Mr. Harland, and with each passing moment, she became more intrigued by him. His condition had improved rapidly, and while his physical recovery was astonishing, it was his words that continued to linger in her mind. "I owe you more than you know," he had said. It wasn't just gratitude. There was something deeper in his tone, something she couldn't quite understand. Every day, as she cared for him, she tried not to read too much into it, but the weight of his words seemed to be constantly pressing against her. One afternoon, after helping him with his lunch, she found herself sitting across from him in the large, quiet dining room. The silence between them was comfortable, but she couldn't ignore the fact that Mr. Harland was no ordinary man. She had caught glimpses of his life, small hints of his wealth that were hard to miss. The expensive artwork on the walls, the luxurious furnishings, and the private staff who came and went, all pointed to one undeniable truth. Mr. Harland wasn't just a retired businessman. He was someone important, someone with power and influence. Yet, he never flaunted it. He never acted superior. He treated Emma with a kind of quiet respect, but there were moments when she sensed something more in his eyes, something beyond simple gratitude. "Mr. Harland," she said one afternoon, gathering the courage to ask a question that had been on her mind for days. "Why did you say that you owe me more than I know? What did you mean by that?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked out the window, his gaze distant, as if lost in thought. For a moment, Emma thought he wouldn't respond, but then he turned his attention back to her, his eyes soft but intense. "Because you've done more for me than you realize," he said slowly. "I've been in a dark place for a long time. I didn't expect anyone to care. But you." His voice trailed off, and for a brief second, Emma could see the vulnerability that he usually kept hidden. "You gave me something I didn't even know I needed," he continued. "Hope. I've spent my whole life building things, making money, but it was never about that. I lost sight of what really mattered. You've reminded me of that." Emma was taken aback. She had always thought of her work as just a job, something to help her survive, but hearing Mr. Harland speak made her realize that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could have the biggest impact. She wasn't just caring for him because it was her job. She was helping him in ways she hadn't even understood. She had helped him rediscover something he had long forgotten. As she processed his words, she found herself wondering what more Mr. Harland's life held. He wasn't just a man who had fallen ill. He was a man with a past, a history that seemed far too complicated to fully grasp. She couldn't help but feel like she was on the edge of something much bigger than she had anticipated. Just then, the phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was the agency, calling to check on how things were going with Mr. Harland. Emma excused herself and answered the call, briefly updating them on his progress. When she hung up, she found herself facing Mr. Harland once more, unsure of how to continue their conversation. But before she could speak, he surprised her. "Emma," he said, his voice steady, "there's something I need to tell you. Something you should know about me." Emma raised an eyebrow, her curiosity piqued. "What is it?" she asked, her heart beating a little faster. He hesitated for a moment, as if weighing his words carefully. "I'm not just some retired businessman," he began, his voice low and serious. "I'm a millionaire. I've built a real estate empire. I've made investments. I've done a lot of things that most people would never understand." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had suspected as much, but hearing it from him was a different story entirely. She tried to keep her composure, but a part of her felt stunned. "I never wanted anyone to know," he continued. "I've spent years hiding from that part of my life. But you've made me see things differently. And I think you deserve to know the truth." Emma sat in silence for a moment, processing what he had just said. She had always known that Mr. Harland wasn't an ordinary man, but hearing the full extent of his wealth and power made everything feel different. She wasn't sure how to feel about it. Was she just another person he was helping because he felt guilty? Or was there something more to their connection? As the realization settled in, Emma looked at him, searching for some kind of answer in his eyes. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "This is a lot to take in." Mr. Harland gave her a small, understanding smile. "You don't have to say anything," he replied. "I just wanted you to know who I really am. And I want to make sure you're taken care of, Emma. I want to make sure your future is secure." Emma's heart raced at the thought of what he was offering. She had never imagined her life would take such an unexpected turn, but here she was, caught in a whirlwind of emotions and decisions that would change everything. The truth about Mr. Harland was out in the open now, and with it came the realization that her life was about to change in ways she never expected. As the days went on, Emma found herself in a whirlwind of emotions, unsure of what to think or how to feel. Mr. Harland's revelation that he was a millionaire had shaken her to her core, but it also stirred something else inside her, a curiosity about the man she had been caring for, and an uncertainty about her place in his world. She had always prided herself on being independent, on doing things on her own for the sake of her children. But now, with this new knowledge of Mr. Harland's wealth and influence, she felt like a small piece of a much larger puzzle, one she hadn't yet figured out. It wasn't the money that bothered her. It was the way he seemed to see her, not as a caregiver, not as someone just doing a job, but as someone who mattered. The next few days were filled with quiet tension between them, neither of them quite sure how to navigate the new dynamic. Mr. Harland continued to improve, and though he wasn't fully recovered, his mind was sharp, and his presence filled the room. Emma couldn't help but notice the way he would look at her sometimes, like he was studying her, trying to figure her out. One afternoon, as she was preparing to leave for the day, Mr. Harland stopped her. "Emma, before you go, I need to talk to you," he said, his voice firm yet gentle. Emma turned around, her heart beating faster at the seriousness in his tone. "What is it?" she asked, her hand still clutching her purse. Mr. Harland took a deep breath and sat back in his chair, his eyes never leaving her. "I know this is a lot to process," he said, "but I want you to know that I'm not just offering you money or security. I want to offer you something more, something that goes beyond the business and beyond the transactions." Emma blinked, taken aback by his words. "What do you mean?" she asked, unsure of where this conversation was heading. Mr. Harland leaned forward slightly, his eyes intense. "I want to help you build the future you've always wanted," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I see the way you care for your children, the way you've put everything aside to make sure they have what they need. I respect that. I admire it. But I also know how hard it is. I know how much you struggle." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. She had never really thought anyone would notice, let alone admire, the sacrifices she made every day. But here was Mr. Harland, a man she barely knew, offering to help her in ways she hadn't imagined possible. "I don't need your money," she said quietly, almost as if to reassure herself. "I just need to make sure my kids are okay. That's all that matters to me." Mr. Harland smiled softly, but there was a depth to it that made Emma pause. "I understand," he said, "but it's not just about the money. I want to invest in your future, in your dreams. I can help you with that, whether it's a business, a career, or just providing a foundation for you and your children to thrive. I can make it happen." Emma was stunned. She didn't know what to say. It was everything she had ever dreamed of, an opportunity to finally build something for herself, to give her children a life free of constant struggle. But at the same time, it felt impossible. She had always believed that success was something you had to earn, that nothing came for free. But now, Mr. Harland was offering her a chance she had never thought possible. "Why would you do this for me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Harland's gaze softened as he leaned back in his chair. "Because you've shown me something that I haven't seen in a long time," he said. "You've reminded me of the things that matter most, the importance of family, of kindness, of giving without expecting anything in return. You've made me realize that it's never too late to change, to make things right. And I want to help you do that." Emma sat there in stunned silence, trying to process everything he had just said. It wasn't just about money. It was about something deeper, something more profound. Mr. Harland wasn't offering her just a financial security blanket. He was offering her the chance to reclaim her dreams, to build a future where she and her children could thrive. But with that offer came the weight of an unspoken question. Could she accept it? Could she allow herself to trust him, to believe in the possibility of something more than just survival? As she looked at him, Emma felt a flicker of hope deep within her, a hope she hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe, just maybe, this was the chance she had been waiting for. But before she could say anything, Mr. Harland's voice interrupted her thoughts. "You don't have to decide right now," he said, his tone gentle but firm. "Take your time. Think about it. I'm here when you're ready." Emma nodded slowly, unsure of what to say next. She had a million questions, a million thoughts racing through her mind, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like there might be an answer that didn't just come with survival, but with something more, with hope. The following days were filled with uncertainty, and Emma found herself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. Mr. Harland's offer was unlike anything she had ever imagined, but the weight of it hung heavy on her. She had always lived her life on her own terms, working hard to make ends meet, but now, someone was offering her a way out, offering her a future where she wouldn't have to struggle every day, where she wouldn't have to worry about her children's future or the bills that never seemed to stop coming. But could she accept it? Could she really allow herself to trust Mr. Harland? For the first time in a long while, Emma felt torn between her pride and her hope. She couldn't help but wonder what his motives were. Was this just a way for him to feel better about himself? Or was there something deeper, something more genuine behind his offer? She tried not to think too much about it, but every time she saw him, his words echoed in her mind. "I want to invest in your future, in your dreams," he had said. It was hard to ignore the sincerity in his voice. One evening, after finishing her shift at Mr. Harland's house, Emma sat in her small apartment, looking out at the city lights. Her children were asleep, and the silence of the night gave her a moment to reflect. She thought about the life she had built so far, a life of sacrifice, of working multiple jobs to make sure her children had everything they needed. She had always believed that if she worked hard enough, things would eventually get better. But now, she wasn't so sure. Could this be the break she had been waiting for? Could she take Mr. Harland's offer and create a future for herself and her children, or would she be forever stuck in the cycle of struggle? Her thoughts were interrupted when her phone rang. It was Mr. Harland. She hesitated for a moment, unsure if she was ready for another conversation about his offer, but then she answered. "Emma," he said, his voice warm but serious, "I've been thinking a lot about our conversation. I understand this is a big decision for you, and I don't want to pressure you. But I also want you to know that I'm serious about helping you. You've shown me something that I've been missing in my own life, a sense of purpose, a reminder of what truly matters. And I want to help you build something real, something lasting." Emma listened quietly, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never expected to hear these words from someone like Mr. Harland. She had seen the wealth, the success, but she had never seen the man behind it all, the man who truly wanted to make a difference in her life. "I know you're not someone who takes handouts," he continued, "and that's not what I'm offering. What I'm offering is a chance for you to build your future your way. I'll provide the resources, but you'll be the one in control. You'll be the one to shape your destiny." His words stirred something deep inside Emma. She had spent so much of her life living for others, making sure her children were cared for, that she had forgotten about her own dreams. But now, with Mr. Harland's offer, she saw a way forward, a way to finally invest in herself, to build something that would change everything. She paused for a moment, thinking carefully. "I don't know if I can do it," she admitted softly. "I've never had the chance to focus on myself before. It feels overwhelming." Mr. Harland's tone softened. "I understand," he said gently, "but you don't have to do it alone. You've already proven that you're strong, that you can take care of what matters most. Now it's time for you to take care of yourself. And I'll be here to support you every step of the way." Emma felt a surge of emotion as she listened to him. His words, though simple, held so much meaning. It wasn't just about the opportunity he was offering her. It was about his belief in her, his faith in her potential. For the first time in a long time, Emma allowed herself to believe that she could be more than just a mother struggling to get by. She could be someone who had control over her future, someone who could create a life she was proud of. "Okay," she said finally, her voice steady but full of emotion. "I'll do it. I'll take the opportunity. I'll build something for myself, for my children." Mr. Harland's voice softened with approval. "I knew you would," he said. "I believe in you, Emma. You're going to do amazing things." As she hung up the phone, Emma felt a sense of calm wash over her. The decision had been made. She was going to take a leap of faith and trust Mr. Harland, trust that this opportunity would lead her to a better life, a life where she didn't have to fight for every little thing. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was in control of her own destiny. The following weeks were a whirlwind of change for Emma. The decision to accept Mr. Harland's offer had marked a turning point in her life, one that she couldn't have predicted even in her wildest dreams. She found herself immersed in a new world, one that felt both exhilarating and intimidating. The opportunity he had offered her wasn't just about money. It was about possibility, about the chance to build a life that was entirely her own. Emma had always put others first, her children, her responsibilities, her survival. But now she was learning to put herself in the equation, something she hadn't done in years. The first step was a meeting at Mr. Harland's office. The day she walked into that sleek, modern building, she felt like a different person. The polished floors, the busy atmosphere, and the overwhelming sense of success in the air were worlds away from the small, cramped apartment she had called home. As she waited for the elevator to take her up to the executive floor, Emma couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. She had always been the one looking in from the outside, watching people like Mr. Harland with awe and wonder. Now, she was here, and she was about to step into that world herself. When the elevator doors opened, she was greeted by a receptionist who led her to a glass-walled conference room. Mr. Harland was already there, waiting for her with a calm smile. "You're right on time," he said, standing to greet her. "I hope you've had a chance to think about our next steps." Emma nodded, trying to steady her nerves. She had spent the last few days preparing for this meeting, but now that she was here, she felt a mix of excitement and uncertainty. "I've been thinking a lot about it," she said, sitting down across from him. "This is all new to me, but I'm ready. I want to make something of myself. I want to build something for my children and for my future." Mr. Harland's eyes softened as he listened to her. "I know this is a big change, Emma, but I believe in you. I wouldn't have made this offer if I didn't think you had the potential to succeed." His words were comforting, but they also brought a sense of responsibility. Emma had never been handed anything in her life. Everything she had ever achieved was because of hard work and determination. But now, with this opportunity, it felt like she had a chance to do something more, something that could change the course of her life forever. The meeting went on for hours, and by the end of it, Emma had a clearer vision of what was to come. Mr. Harland had outlined a plan for her to start her own business, using the resources he could provide. He wasn't just offering her a handout. He was giving her the tools to create something of her own. There was a sense of empowerment in his words, a belief in her that she had never experienced before. After the meeting, Emma left the building with a new sense of purpose. As she walked down the street, the weight of the decision still heavy on her shoulders, she couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. She was about to embark on a journey that would challenge her in ways she had never been challenged before, but for the first time in her life, she felt ready. The following days were filled with preparations. Emma met with lawyers, accountants, and business advisors to help her set the foundation for her new venture. There were moments when doubt crept in, moments when she questioned if she was capable of pulling this off. But every time she felt that way, she remembered Mr. Harland's words, his belief in her. It gave her the strength to keep moving forward. One night, as Emma sat at her kitchen table, working late into the evening, her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Mr. Harland. "I just wanted to check in," the message read. "How are you feeling about everything?" Emma smiled as she read his words. She hadn't expected him to reach out like this, but it reminded her that she wasn't alone in this journey. "I'm feeling good," she typed back. Excited, but nervous. "It's a lot to take in, but I'm ready for the challenge." A few minutes later, his response came. "You've got this, Emma. I know you do. And remember, I'm here whenever you need me." His words brought a sense of calm to her restless mind. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she had someone in her corner, someone who believed in her abilities. The next morning, she woke up with a renewed sense of determination. Today was the day she would take the first step toward building her future. She had already come so far, and she wasn't about to stop now. As the days turned into weeks, Emma worked tirelessly, putting her heart and soul into the new business. She encountered obstacles, of course. There were setbacks, moments of doubt, and challenges that seemed insurmountable. But with each obstacle, she learned, and with each lesson, she grew stronger. She found herself becoming more confident, more capable. She wasn't just building a business. She was building a life. Through it all, Mr. Harland remained a steady presence, offering advice when needed and always encouraging her to push forward. Emma knew that, with his help, she was creating something that would last, something that would provide for her children and give them the life they deserved. And as the business began to grow, Emma's confidence grew with it. She had made the right choice, and she was finally taking control of her own destiny. As the weeks turned into months, Emma's life began to change in ways she had never imagined. The business she had started with Mr. Harland's guidance was beginning to take off, and each day she saw more progress, more growth. The overwhelming feeling of being overwhelmed slowly gave way to a quiet confidence. She was doing it. She was actually doing it. There were still days when the weight of responsibility felt heavy, when the doubts crept in and made her question if she was really cut out for all of this. But then, she would remember why she had taken this leap of faith in the first place. The opportunity to build something for her children, to give them a future free from the constant struggle she had known for so long. Emma had always worked hard, but now, she was working for something more than just survival. She was working for her dreams. Every morning, as she sat at her desk, staring at the progress she had made, she couldn't help but think of how far she had come. Just a few months ago, she had been unsure of herself, unsure of whether she could trust Mr. Harland, or whether she could really build a life outside of the struggle. But now, as she looked at her expanding business, Emma realized that everything she had worked for had led her to this point. The phone calls, the meetings, the late nights, it was all paying off. One afternoon, as she sat in her office, her phone buzzed with a message from Mr. Harland. She smiled as she opened it. "I'm proud of you, Emma. You're doing an amazing job. Keep pushing." His words meant more to her than he would ever know. When she had first met him, she had never imagined that someone like him would be rooting for her, someone who saw potential in her even when she couldn't see it in herself. And now, his belief in her was a constant source of motivation. Emma had made it a habit to reach out to Mr. Harland every so often for advice or guidance. But his support had become more than just professional. Over time, their relationship had shifted into something more personal. They had shared stories about their lives, their struggles, and their dreams, and Emma found herself looking forward to their conversations. There was a warmth in his voice, a sincerity that she couldn't ignore. She had never expected that from him. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, Emma found herself sitting in her small apartment, sipping her tea as she thought about everything that had happened. The business was growing, but so was her relationship with Mr. Harland. She had tried not to overthink it, but the connection between them had become undeniable. She had never been one to rush into relationships, especially not after everything she had been through. But as she sat there, thinking about the support he had given her, about the way he had believed in her when no one else did, she couldn't help but wonder if there was more to their relationship than just business. Just then, her phone buzzed again. It was a message from Mr. Harland. "I'm hosting a charity event this weekend," the message read. "I would love for you to come. It's a chance for us to celebrate the progress you've made, but also to meet some of the people who believe in what you're doing." Emma felt a wave of nervousness wash over her. A charity event? She had never been to anything like that before, and the idea of being in the same room as some of the most powerful and influential people in the city was both exciting and intimidating. But at the same time, she knew it was an opportunity she couldn't pass up. "I would love to," she typed back. "Thank you for the invitation. I'm looking forward to it." As the weekend approached, Emma felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. She had never imagined herself attending an event like this, but now, thanks to Mr. Harland, she was about to step into a world she had always observed from the outside. When the night of the event finally arrived, Emma found herself standing in front of a grand venue, the lights shining brightly as people in elegant attire walked in and out. She felt a little out of place in her simple dress, but when she stepped inside, she was immediately greeted with warmth and kindness. Mr. Harland was there, of course, and he introduced her to several people who had supported her business from the very beginning. It was a humbling experience, and as the night wore on, Emma found herself feeling more and more confident. The people she met were not just successful, they were kind, supportive, and genuinely interested in her journey. By the end of the night, Emma was overwhelmed with gratitude. She had never imagined that she could belong in this world, let alone be celebrated for her achievements. As she spoke with Mr. Harland at the end of the event, he smiled at her, his eyes filled with pride. "You've come so far, Emma," he said. "You've earned everything you've accomplished, and I couldn't be more proud of you." Emma's heart swelled with emotion as she realized that this was more than just a business opportunity. It was the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one filled with possibility, hope, and a future that was entirely her own. As the months passed, Emma's life continued to unfold in ways she never could have imagined. The charity event had been a turning point, not just for her business, but for her personal life as well. She had started to feel more at home in the circles she once thought were out of reach. The people she had met at the event were supportive and encouraging, and Emma realized that the opportunities in front of her were limitless. She began to feel a sense of belonging, something she had always longed for, but never truly believed she could have. But as her confidence grew, so did her internal conflict. The more time she spent with Mr. Harland, the more she found herself drawn to him, not just as a mentor or business partner, but as someone who had become an important part of her life. Their conversations had shifted from business matters to more personal topics, and Emma couldn't help but notice the way he looked at her, the way his presence seemed to fill the room whenever he entered. She had never expected to feel this way about him. He was the man who had changed her life, who had given her the opportunity to build something real. But could there be more between them? Emma had been so focused on her work, on her children, that she had pushed her personal feelings aside. But now, they seemed impossible to ignore. One evening, after another long day of meetings and business plans, Emma found herself sitting in her office, reflecting on everything that had happened. She had accomplished so much, but there was still a part of her that felt incomplete. It wasn't just about the business anymore. It was about her life, her happiness, and the possibility of something more. Just as she was lost in thought, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Mr. Harland. "I was thinking about you today. I know we've been focused on the business, but I wanted to tell you how proud I am of everything you've done. You're not just building a business, Emma. You're building a legacy." His words made her heart skip a beat. She had always appreciated his support, but this felt different. It was as if he was seeing her not just for the work she was doing, but for who she was becoming. She couldn't help but smile as she typed back, "Thank you, Mr. Harland. Your belief in me has meant more than I can say." A few moments later, another message came through. "I'm serious, Emma. You've changed my life, too. And I think it's time we talk about something more." Emma's heart raced as she read his words. What did he mean? Was he offering something more than just business? Advice? She didn't know how to respond, but her curiosity got the best of her. She quickly typed, "What do you mean, more?" There was a long pause before he replied, and when the message finally came, it was simple, yet powerful. "I think you know exactly what I mean." Emma stared at the screen, her mind spinning. She had been waiting for something like this, but now that it was here, she didn't know what to do with it. Was she ready to open her heart again? Was she ready to take a chance on love, especially with someone like Mr. Harland, someone who had so much power and influence in her life? Her thoughts were interrupted when her phone buzzed again, this time with a call. It was Mr. Harland. She took a deep breath and answered. "Emma," he said softly, "I know this is unexpected, but I wanted to say it to you directly. I care about you. More than just as a business partner, more than just as a mentor. I care about you as a person, and I think we both deserve the chance to explore what's between us." His words hung in the air, and for a moment, Emma didn't know what to say. Her mind was racing, but her heart was telling her something different. She had never expected to be in this situation, to be offered a chance at love with someone who had already changed her life so much. But as she listened to him speak, she realized that this was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment she had been afraid of, but also the moment she had hoped for. "I care about you too, Mr. Harland," she said, her voice steady but full of emotion. "But this is all so new. I need time to think." He was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice was filled with understanding. "Take all the time you need, Emma. I'm not going anywhere. When you're ready, I'll be here." The call ended, and Emma sat there, her heart beating fast. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was standing at the edge of something beautiful. She had spent so many years focused on survival, on making sure her children were taken care of, that she had forgotten about her own desires, her own happiness. But now, with Mr. Harland's offer and the life she was building, she realized that she didn't have to choose between love and success. She could have both. The next morning, Emma woke up with a sense of clarity. She had taken the time to think, and now she knew what she wanted. She wasn't afraid to take the next step with Mr. Harland, to explore the connection between them, and to see where it would lead. As she prepared for the next chapter of her life, she realized that everything she had gone through, every struggle, every challenge, had brought her here, to this moment, to this opportunity, and to the possibility of a future filled with love, success, and happiness. Weeks passed after Emma made her decision, and with each passing day, her life became even more intertwined with Mr. Harland's. The business continued to thrive, and Emma had found herself growing not just as an entrepreneur, but as a person. With the support of Mr. Harland, she felt capable of tackling anything that came her way. But what had truly begun to blossom between them was the connection that went beyond business. Their relationship, once professional, had evolved into something more personal, something both exciting and intimidating. Emma had never thought she would find herself in a relationship with someone like Mr. Harland, someone so powerful, influential, and accomplished. She had spent so many years focusing on providing for her children, surviving each day, that love had never seemed like something she could afford to prioritize. Yet here she was, standing on the precipice of a new chapter in her life. One where love and success could coexist, where her dreams weren't just fantasies but tangible goals. One evening, as they sat in the private garden of Mr. Harland's estate, the air was warm, and the world around them felt still. They had been talking about everything: business, the future, their hopes. It felt natural, easy, and Emma realized that in all this time, she had never felt more understood, more cared for. "Emma," Mr. Harland said, his voice soft and steady as he took her hand in his. "I know this hasn't been easy for you. You've been through so much, and yet, here you are, stronger than ever." She looked into his eyes, the sincerity of his words, grounding her, and her heart swelled with emotion. She had spent so long hiding behind walls, afraid to let anyone in. But with Mr. Harland, those walls were slowly crumbling. "I never thought I'd be here," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "In this place, with you. I never thought I could have everything I've dreamed of: success, stability, and love." Mr. Harland smiled, a look of tenderness in his eyes. "I'm glad you found a place where you feel like you can have it all," he said. "Because you deserve it, Emma. More than anyone I know." She paused for a moment, her mind racing. Everything had changed. Her life, her business, and even her heart. She had come so far from the woman who struggled to get by, from the mother who fought to give her children the best. And now, she was beginning to see that she could have it all: success, love, and the chance to truly be happy. "I've been thinking," Emma continued, "about all of this. About what we've built, about what we could build together. I'm not just talking about the business. I'm talking about us, about our future." Mr. Harland looked at her, his gaze filled with warmth. "What are you saying, Emma?" he asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and affection. Emma took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. This was it. The moment when she would choose not just to succeed, but to trust in something bigger than herself. "I'm saying that I'm ready," she replied. "I'm ready to take the next step with you, not just in business, but in life. I'm ready to see where this can go." A soft smile spread across Mr. Harland's face, and he squeezed her hand gently. "I've been waiting for you to say that," he said. "Because I feel the same way, Emma. I've never been more sure of anything in my life." The moment felt surreal. Emma had always believed that love was something that happened to other people, something she could never afford to focus on. But now, with Mr. Harland, she realized that she didn't have to choose between her dreams and her heart. She could have both. Over the next few months, Emma's life continued to flourish. The business grew, the foundation they had built together was strong, and Emma began to truly feel like she had found her place in the world. With Mr. Harland by her side, she felt empowered to take risks, to reach for things she had once thought were impossible. But more than that, she felt loved. She felt that she wasn't alone anymore. She had someone who believed in her, who stood by her side through every challenge and triumph. Their relationship blossomed, not just in private moments, but in every aspect of their lives. They supported each other, pushed each other to be better, and shared in the joy of building something meaningful. One evening, after a successful business launch, Mr. Harland took Emma out to a quiet restaurant to celebrate. As they sat across from each other, the candlelight flickering softly between them, he reached for her hand. "I have something I want to ask you," he said, his voice calm, yet filled with emotion. Emma's heart skipped a beat as she looked at him, her mind racing with possibilities. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Mr. Harland smiled, a look of deep affection in his eyes. "Will you marry me, Emma?" For a moment, everything around them seemed to fade away. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she stared at him, her mind processing the question. The man who had changed her life, the man who had shown her what it meant to dream again, was asking her to be a part of his future forever. She smiled through her tears, her heart full of love and gratitude. "Yes," she said softly, "I will." And in that moment, Emma knew that everything she had worked for, everything she had fought for, had led her to this, the chance to have it all, to live the life she had always dreamed of, with the man she loved by her side.